Hey, everybody, and welcome to something I've been so excited to talk about. It is one of my most anticipated games of all time, and that is Metroid Dread on the Switch. And I am so excited to have a couple guests with me tonight who are also going to be geeking out with me. First, we have Matt.
I
Hold on,
absolutely
Matt.
love.
I just realized I had you turned down. So, first we have up is Matt.
I'm just Matt. So I'm Matt. I will do this again. I work at Skybound Tabletop. We have games such as Title Blades, Grim Forest, all different kinds of great stuff like Wonderland's War coming out. And yeah, but outside of board games and tabletop, I have been playing video games since I can even remember, since I was little. So Metroid has been something that I've grew up with, and I'm excited to get into talking about Dread.
All right. And then also Nick.
All right, thanks, Marty. Yep, I'm Nick. I have a boring day job, unlike Matt. But at night, I do design games. I'm probably best known for Adventure Tactics, but that should change next year. There should be another game coming out that will probably push up
We're all gonna know your
prominence a
name.
little bit. Yeah, well, I don't not we won't go that far, but
Where everybody knows your name.
Right.
Yeah, so let me just check something real quick. Yeah, I had everybody turned down. Is everything okay? Yeah, all right. So I just want to make sure. All right, so before we get started talking about Metroid Dread, turn up Matt and Nick a little. I can do that for you. I can sure can.
Thanks.
Um, yeah, I want to make sure that you are heard.
And thanks,
So,
chat, for letting everyone know.
yep.
yeah.
The volume's
Yeah,
low.
and as we talk about this, if y'all have the game or have any questions about the game, please chime in and let us know. But first, I want to get a baseline of everybody's background on basically Metroid. So here's the thing. I know if you look at me, you'll go, obviously, Marty, you probably played the original, and because you're so old. I did not, even though I had an NES. At the time, I was still very much in arcade mode. So I was very much into arcade type games at the time. So even with the NES, I was still doing that sort of thing. Super Mario was one of those things that never really got me excited. I was not big into platformers. So when I saw Metroid, I thought, okay, that's just Mario in space. So I avoided it. Basically, I didn't play one. I didn't have a Game Boy, regular Game Boy, so I didn't play two. I didn't play Super Metroid. It wasn't until was it 2002 when Metroid Prime. It was 2002 or 2004 when Metroid Prime was announced, and I thought, man, that is really cool. Okay, first person shooter, I'm in. Let's do this. And it was the same. In fact, it was the same day that Fusion was also released in November because I went back and looked it up. And so Fusion was actually the very first platform version of Metroid that I played, and I fell in love with it basically ever since. Samus has become my all-time favorite video game character. Even though before I was playing it, I knew about the surprise at the end of Metroid, where you find out where she takes off the helmet, and I think that was one of several alternate endings, right? Or is that always the
Yep.
same ending? It was
No,
alternate
no,
endings.
that you had to beat it within a certain period, and then she actually had like the swimsuit outfit if you beat it super fast, like 3 times or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, so you find out, oh my gosh, it's a woman, which was really, really cool. So anyway, I just love her lore, being a loner in space, a bounty hunter, etc. So ever since then, I've been a huge fan. So I played Fusion, Zero Mission, Metroid Prime. I finished those. I never did finish the second two Metroids. I did not like Metroid 3 on the Wii because I didn't want to be doing this all the time, and it just really frustrated me. And I did get Samus Returns, which was the remake of Metroid 2
Mhm.
on the 3DS, but I never finished it because the Switch was out. So I got halfway through it, but I was so encumbered with or so in love with the Switch, I never went back to it. So I've been waiting many years for this and super excited. And I've talked long enough. So Matt, what's your history?
No, you're good. I love it, and I love that someone said there's a reason that the genre is called Metroidvania. And yeah, that is definitely the genre. We had a discussion on Twitter about this actually, and that was, do you call Metroid a Metroidvania or do you call Castlevania a Metroidvania, right? Because they are the titles of this genre that's created. I felt it was redundant. But yeah, like aside from whether or not, I mean, they are Metroidvanias, right? They are the 2D side scroller backtracking style games where you get a little, you find something and you go backwards and then move forwards a little more, and you generally in the 2D perspective. Igavania also was kind of a term because Iga is the creator of Castlevania, or the director or whatnot of Symphony of the Night, and like the Game Boy Advance ones like Aria of Sorrow and all those Harmony of Dissonance and whatnot. So Iga, and he did Bloodstained recently, Kickstarter.
Yep.
But I'm going way off. What do I? When did I start playing Metroid? I started playing Metroid on the NES. I actually the NES Metroid was the first Metroid I played. I didn't finish it. I think I mean I played it for a while and then never ever once beat that game. I can't even remember if I beat it, but I fell in love with them on the Game Boy Advance ones as well. I actually missed Super Metroid, which I know is like crazy and regarded as one of the best games of all time.
The best.
Yeah, well, so I have played it since, but like in the time frame of it coming out for Super Nintendo, right? Like I just missed it. It just was Super Nintendo. I didn't have. I had a Genesis, so I missed Super Metroid, and yeah, I got into the Game Boy Advance ones. Fusion was great. I'll be honest, Metroid Prime is my favorite one out of any of them. Metroid Prime is just like I cannot wait to see that trilogy come back and get back into it. I felt they did an amazing job of it's first person, but it felt like a 2D Metroidvania, right? Like it had the feel of Metroid, but it just was in first person. And at the time, the GameCube, it was GameCube, right? Yeah, GameCube was the first Metroid Prime. Like it just looked so good. There were some games that came out around that time that they were like pushing the boundary on graphics, and Metroid Prime was one of them. That and like Resident Evil, like those games looked so good. But that's it. That's it for me. And then I've played, everything up until we've been without. How long have we been without a Metroid game? Like when was the last release?
Was
Do
it
we
nine?
know?
Was it 19 years? Because it was 2002.
It's insane to me.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like when Metroid games were coming out, Nintendo didn't push them a lot, right? Like they did not get the backing of their other first party titles. I feel like Dread has, as far as just like marketing wise, because it's the first one in a long time. But yeah, like it's been interesting. So Nick, what's your history with Metroid?
Yeah, so I cut my teeth on the original Metroid on the NES, and this was back in the old days. And it's funny you talked about the secret reveal, right? That Samus Aran is female, right? She's a woman, because people didn't believe you unless they'd done it themselves or they subscribed to like what was it, Nintendo Pro or whatever, the magazine, because they just didn't know that that was a thing. So until they experienced it for themselves, they didn't know. So that was just funny back in the day when you're kids, and this is before IGN, this is before the internet, right? So you had to discover for yourself, and that was just like a cool little secret. And I am a lapsed Metroid fan compared to you two. I played through up to Prime. That was the last one that I played, and then I haven't played a Metroid game since. So Dread is the first one I've gone back to. So I'm over 20 years out for Metroid.
Yeah.
It's funny. Somebody in the chat said, "Oh, Other M came out," and I went, "Other M doesn't exist."
Oh
I'm
yeah,
just laughing at your comment of that.
I have a friend who's like completely disavowed that game. Like it just doesn't exist.
Yeah. Talk about not doing Metroid story the correct way. I mean,
Right.
And they just overdid it. Like not to dive into this one yet because I know Marty's probably got a plan for this, but the story and pacing in this one is so much better than Other M, or Other M went out like too much story, right? Like you don't need a lot of story in these games.
Well, they also kind of undercut her character, right? She's supposed to be like this amazing bounty hunter, and
she just had
kind
daddy
of
issues.
Yeah, exactly. It should they give her, yeah, they really weakened her character.
Yeah, she just had daddy issues the whole time.
And it's just we talked about why Nintendo hasn't pushed this more because this is such a strong property. Brie Larson, right? She's Captain Marvel.
Yeah,
and she's a gamer, right? She talked about how Metroid is like her favorite series, and if they ever do a live action movie, she wants to be Samus, right?
Yeah. And I think she'd be really good at it. Actually.
Yeah, she'd be awesome.
I think
she's actually like probably
Samus.
perfect casting.
All right, so Metroid Dread, and this kind of dropped out of nowhere because I think the first trailer was at E3 of this year.
Yeah,
and people were like, "Just give us something about Prime 4, Prime 4, Prime 4." And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, and this is the second trailer. I'm going to actually pull it up while we talk here. This is the second trailer that came out, but this can be playing in the background. When they started showing this, I went, "Oh, Metroid Prime 4, sweet." I went, "Wait a minute, this is a side scroller." And then they do the whole thing at the very end. They just show number one, they show Metroid Prime 5, and I was very confused at this point because I was still expecting Metroid Prime 4. And so they showed it, and it was like, oh, so Metroid 5, meaning fifth in the side scroller series. And I've been psyched for it ever since, and following every bit of news. And Matt, you're right, the marketing has been really, really well done over the past several months.
People are watching the trailer.
Oh no, it's just playing in the background. We could talk over it. It's not, there's no sound or anything. Somebody asked, can you hear your preference of 2D versus 3D? So here's the thing. When I first got Prime was like my favorite of all time. But when I kind of rediscovered the 2D, I love them both. I don't know that I have a favorite because they are so different.
I prefer the 2D. I mean, it's funny I say that because because Prime was my favorite one, right? But like, I love 2D side-scrolling games. I don't know that genre. I was playing Aria of Sorrow prior to this coming out. I stopped dead in my tracks playing that. Started this up. The year that Shovel Knight came out, that was my favorite game of the year. Looking back on just some of the 2D games that have come out over the years, like Symphony of Night is one of my favorite games. That's a top 5 game for me. Like Symphony of Night is, it's just that 2D pixel style. I love it, and I'll always be hesitant when I remember when they announced Prime. I was like, man, are they going to do this in 3? And they just did an amazing job with it. I was thinking more impressed by the job that they did versus like anything else. But I still prefer I'm like, man, I hope they go back to making more good Metroid 2D games. But this is really cool too. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm 2D for life as well.
2D for life, gotcha. Yeah.
And maybe that's why Prime was the last game I played until Dread, right? I'm like, it's fine. But I think the limitations of 2D actually made them be more creative in some of the design choices and exploration, right? Like when, I'd forgotten how many times I checked the map until I started playing Dread again. I'm like, oh, I'm looking at this map all the time, right? I'm like, what did I miss? This section's glowing. I better go back and see if I can find something, right?
The plus button is my friend in this game, because that's what pulls up the map. Especially in here, we'll just go ahead and get into it. So y'all, if you've seen the trailers, that there's these robots called Emmys, EMMI. And the whole concept of this is you go into certain areas, and there are these robots that are indestructible, pretty much, basically trying to hunt you down. So that's where the Dread came from. And if you haven't played the game yet, y'all, the name fits, because for me, when I walk into especially a fresh Emmy zone and don't know where anything is, basically you're just running for your life and trying to avoid, and you're pulling up the map. Where should I go? Where should I go? Where should I go? So the Dread name really fits with this. And so that's why I'm constantly pulling up the map. Now I map it out. It's like, I've got to go in the Emmy zone. I need to go up, over, or down, go. And then I try to remember which way I need to go as I'm trying to avoid the Emmy till I get to the other side. In fact, I was doing that today. I just discovered a new zone, and I had to get to an Emmy zone to get to the other side, and it was stressful.
I'm almost curious if, obviously, like you said, it does have a feeling of dread because you're being chased by these things. But not knowing, I mean, I'm 2 hours into the game. How about you guys? Where are you at in the game, like time-wise? What did you log off at? I'm like 2.5.
I'm also around 2 hours, but that doesn't include the hour of dying. Apparently that doesn't.
I've died 100 times.
Yeah.
I'm at 3 or 4. So today I found, I found the third zone.
Oh.
Yeah. I revisited an old friend. That's where I'm at.
Maybe I'm moving faster than you guys. I'm in the third zone. I had to go backwards, but like I'm in the third zone as well.
Y'all are better gamers than I am. I'll totally
no,
because the second boss die. So
that took me a few times too.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just beat him. I just finished the second boss. But real quick, back on the Dread point. I just want to I'm curious if that term comes up in the story someplace. Now I don't know. But I always like how sometimes they tie the name of the game into the game. story somewhere, and they haven't yet. I haven't really noticed or seen if you guys have outside of the general feeling of being in Dread. But I feel like there's going to be a little deeper meaning to Dread.
Yeah, I mean that was very different though. The Emmys, right? The MMIs, because normally in Metroid games, the only reason you care about speed is getting a better ending, right? You're not forced to progress. You can spend as much time as you want exploring an area, but you're forced to, as Mighty was saying, you're forced to navigate very quickly through. So that actually felt very un-Metroid-like to me in some ways, but I appreciate it, and that's more of a nod towards modern gaming, right? Like we all knew, like, oh, Samus is going to start off the game depowered, right? You can't have a billion power-ups going into the game, but they throw you like in the deep end. It's like, okay, not only did you lose all your powers, but now your robots are chasing you all over the place, and you have to very quickly, run past them. So yeah, it definitely gave me that feeling of panic.
How many times have you guys successfully escaped an Emmy robot with a counter? Wait, does that count the free one that they gave you at the beginning of the game?
No. Once I got lucky, and I was talking. How many times have y'all?
A couple
Like 2 or
times,
3
but not
times.
many. Yeah, like
Okay, 2 or 3.
I don't even know where the counter is supposed to occur.
I think it's twice. I think
the
there's
animation.
There's two, yeah.
There's the punch, so the thing comes at you, and there's a punch counter, and then there's the face counter. So there's 2 opportunities, I think. But after I miss the first one, my brain is like, nah, and then I'm just like, I'm dead. If people don't know, these are instant kills, by the way. Yeah. These robots chase you and hunt you. If they catch you, they will kill you, and then you start back over. And again, the Emmys are in trailers. This is not like anything super spoiler. This monster, like this robot, chases you and instant kills you. But you do have an opportunity to counter it, which brings me to another point. The counter system in this game is amazing. I absolutely love the counter in this game. It makes me feel like a badass every time I land it against any of the enemies.
Especially the flying ones, right? You're like,
the flying ones are so good.
Yeah.
So good on the counter.
Did you play Samus Returns?
I don't think I have. No, it's counter in that too.
That's where counter was introduced.
Okay, yeah.
And it's way better in here because in some of those counter was necessary. Here, counter is optional, but if you get it, awesome. I couldn't stand the nest, and also you couldn't move and counter. You had to stay in one spot to counter. Here, you can at least move while you hit the counter, and you had got to do it. So they've redone the counter system from Samus Returns, and it's way better now. But man, it's the best way to get health and missiles too. Because I think if you pull off a counter, I think you get more stuff.
You get extra stuff. Yeah, I've noticed that. Sliding is new though, right? That's a brand new mechanic.
Yep.
Yeah, the slide's cool. Slide into a morph ball, like that kind of, like there's just some really cool stuff that you start, like morph balls in every game. You'll be a morph ball in this. Surprise. I just got that. Actually, that was pretty new. You get it right.
You're way ahead of me then.
What's that?
You're way ahead of me then.
Am I? Are you not a morph ball yet?
I just got the I hope this isn't spoiling anything. I just got the wide fire.
I got the wide. Yeah. That's another upgrade. But the upgrades are great, and every upgrade so far has felt really strong. The suit upgrades have felt great. I mean, as you just progress, I mean, it's that same kind of like progression through any Metroid that keeps you going on it. Like if you don't have these kind of, it's just the fishing pole kind of thing, right? Like they're tugging you along. They're like, all right, once it starts to feel samey, here's a new suit, or here's a whole new set of powers. And by the end of it, your Samus is usually like just awesome. Like you have, and probably, I don't know this, you'll have to use everything all at once, right? Like what's the last level or boss that requires you to use everything you've learned, since the beginning of it?
Mm-hmm.
But they do reward you saving up your missiles, right? Like you can still just like level bosses, just like unload like all your missiles. Like that will still help.
I really appreciate them offering up some missiles and health during boss fights. Like you can, I don't know if I would have made it through any of the boss fights without it. Like especially the second one. The second one, I needed every single piece of health that came out of the second boss. And to talk about the bosses real quick without spoiling them, they are huge. They are awesome. They're animated really well, and like they're really impressive. Like the bosses are cool.
Now the second boss, if we're talking about the same second boss. There's one that's kind of like an intro boss. I'm calling that number 1.
I don't think he counts. He's like a mini boss, right?
Wait, the
ball,
the floating,
ball.
Yeah.
Ball's not a boss.
Okay.
He's like a mini boss. Yeah, he's like
Yeah.
introduction to the boss mechanics. Yeah.
All right, so I'll just talk about the first one's in the trailer. So this is not giving anything away. But one thing that I love is you pull off like a counter, and what you think is like a cutscene is not. This still is you're still supposed to fight. The
Yeah.
camera switches to where it's almost like 3D, but you still need to activate and do stuff. So
Totally.
I love going from that 2D side scroll to this like 3D animation type thing that you're still interacting with.
Yeah, and they have elements of that against the Emmys, and also the first boss too. Like there's a moment where you slide, and you're actually
Mhm.
the perspective shifts in the same way, but you can
Yeah.
still do stuff. Yeah.
That's so cool because you think it's in a cinematic thing, but you're like, no, I have to fire missiles at this point.
Right.
So hold trigger and start shooting. Because she'll change. If you're just shooting blasters in that cinematic, she'll shoot her blasters. But if
Yep.
you're shooting missiles, she'll be shooting her missiles. In those cinematic mode, like little moments, I mean, they make it like, and they happen all throughout the game. Like whether you're sliding into a new area or you're encountering a new boss or just kind of Emmys pop in or whatnot. Cinematic moments like just fill this game with so much life, bringing it like it's a 2D game, but man, you feel like you're there. Like you feel like you're in this world, even though it's a 2D thing.
Right, and
Somebody-
it feels more interesting. Sorry,
Go ahead, no,
I'd
go
say
ahead.
it feels more interactive than just like a quick time event, right? Like from God of
Mhm.
War or that kind of
Mhm.
game.
Somebody in the chat said earlier that they finished the game in 7 hours. That was playtime, not death time. And they just suggested best advice is that you keep firing your weapons during those cutscenes. So I guess throughout the
Absolutely.
rest of the game, always keep firing.
I'll take that advice. Thank you. And 7 hours sounds online with what I've read quite a bit. I don't think it's an overly long game, which isn't too bad. As I get older, I don't care if a game is 50 hours.
Yeah, if I can beat a game under 20 hours, I'm happy. Like
I'm
I've seen
happy.
kids, like,
Yeah, get me in, get me out. Let me enjoy the experience. And if it's really good, I'll keep playing like a new game plus or something. But
So one thing that's come up is, wow, you finished the game in 7 hours. Is that
That's
worth
pretty
a
good.
60-hour price tag?
yes,
Think so?
I do.
Yeah, and I think we're going to continue to see more expensive games too.
Yeah. So a couple things like let me talk about a price of a game for here, like just for a second, because for one, games have been $60 for a long time. Okay, games should potentially be like $80, $90. Just with inflation, just over the course of the years, they've been honestly N64 games back in the day were $90 to $100. Like you couldn't buy Turok the Dinosaur Hunter for like $80, right? Like they have actually come down and they've steadied. They've been at 60 for a long time. I really think that, especially looking at the care and quality of Metroid, like that style of game is worth $60. If I'm going to look at a 7-hour game that might not have that much development into it, then maybe that's when I back it up a little bit. But I feel like I'm getting my money's worth out of this. Like I am at a level of enjoyment with this visually, gameplay wise, that yes, this is absolutely worth $60, even if it's only 7 hours long. I don't antiquate how many hours I play versus how many dollars it should be. Like a 60-hour game is not like $1 per hour. This is not how this works. Right? Like I get an experience and I enjoy it and it's $60. I mean, these games cost a lot to make. So I'm good with the 60.
It's also hard to escape that conversation without talking about crunch, right? The inhumane working conditions that a lot
Right.
of companies go through. Like if you want a $60 game for, but it needs to be $100 or 100 hours, like open sandbox, like that's not happening without crunch.
And the last you just said, Marty, you said the last Metroid game was like 19 years ago. So we don't know how long they've been working on this. They've been
Right.
working on Dread for quite some time,
Mhm.
which tells me they've been, not casually, but hopefully they haven't been crunching to get this out on a certain date. Nintendo seems to have this down where they work on their games for as long as they need to. They release it whenever they feel like it, right? Like Breath of the Wild 2, we don't know where that's when's that coming out? Next year? Who knows? It'll come out when it comes out, but there's not like this huge rush to like push it out, as this game kind of felt like it had as long as it needed to. So that $60 just feels right, for this game.
Right. So Scott Plays Board Game said, I've got a little over 100 hours into AOC, and a short game will be a nice change of pace. I'm drawing a blank. What's AOC? Capital A, little O,
Age.
something of something.
Wait, I want to figure this out.
He said Age of Conan.
Age of Conan. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
Oh,
that's
I
a
don't.
sandbox. That's a sandbox survival game.
it's like an
Yeah.
MMO style
Oh,
like game.
gotcha.
So you can
Free
spend
to
forever in
play.
that game. Yeah.
Oh, Age of Calamity. No, totally different game. Age of Calamity.
Yeah. Age of Conan, I tried that. I didn't get into it too much, but at the time I was playing a lot of Final Fantasy 14 and like World of Warcraft and stuff, and I was just, too caught up. Like I can only do like one MMO at a time. Uh, I go crazy. But that's cool. Yeah. That's different. World of Warcraft. If I check my playtime on that, it's like
Oh yeah. Don't ask me. I don't even know.
I don't want to know. You know?
So I play a lot of Guild Wars too.
Yeah.
I checked my age the other day. It was like 300 to 400 hours, which is probably low for an MMO, but that's probably the longest I've put into a
My
game.
wife had 150 hours in Animal Crossing that I just lost. Let's talk about
Oh, jeez.
that.
It's easy to rack up time in Animal Crossing though, because it's just like the idle game, right? It's like a step up from idle games. Like it's
Yeah.
just a fun, relaxing. You know,
Yeah, and
you
you
just play it for like an hour, and you're like, oh, where did that hour go?
and then I take a game like Scarlet Nexus, which I just finished. That was for PS5 and some other systems. Amazing action RPG, anime style graphics, similar to like what Nick you said, like God Eater. I haven't played the God Eater games, but it kind
Yeah,
of.
those are
Have you
fun.
started that yet? Have you tried Scarlet at all?
I fired it up, but that's all. That's as far as I've gone.
But that game, for instance, I beat it at like 30 hours. However, the last 3 chapters I could have just done without. Like I was just, I could have been done with that game much earlier. In those last 3 chapters, I was just like, it didn't really grab me enough. I mean, the combat is so good that it kept me through, but like everything else, like it was too long for me a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of padding in games these days. Like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that game was about 40 hours longer than it needed to be.
Of course,
Uh,
yeah, totally.
and
Yeah.
like it was a drag. I wanted to beat it because I wanted to finish the story, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to go to this other city. Like I already did all these cities, and it plays out exactly the same, but you have to do this entire thing to get like that 20 minutes of cutscene, right, to advance the story.
Mm. Yeah, it's Tony, my co-host, is playing it right now, and I don't know. So when you got a job and you got kids, you got other responsibilities, a 7 to 15 hour game sounds really good right now. So
Yeah,
when I heard that Metroid was 8-10 hours just for the main story, I went perfect because I know
And
that's 8 to 10 hours without dying, so it's going to be longer than that.
yeah, and understand like anyone that's like maybe listening to this or watching this right now, Metroid Dread is currently my game of the year. Like this is my favorite game that I've played so far this year. I've played most of the hot stuff, right? Like I mean, I have played Deathloop. I've played everything else that's getting the high scores. I tend to like I every year I have played all of generally the top games to get like a good feel of what is and what isn't. And for me, like this is currently enjoyment wise, even in like within like just under 3 hours, this is my favorite game that's come out this year. And at 7 hours, if it wraps up and the credits roll and I'm still happy, then it's gonna stay there. Like I don't know if anything else is coming out this year that might beat it.
Hadn't been a lot this year.
that's high praise.
What do you think might be above it?
My personal favorite might be Hades for this year.
Hades
That was last
buddy.
year.
Oh, was that last year?
Yeah.
Let me think.
Oh, and Hades was worth game of the year last year, 100%.
It didn't get my game of the year though. The only reason, all right, listen, Hades is a masterpiece, right? Like, and Nick, you can go ahead and give Hades game of the year this year. It
All right,
totally deserves
it's also game of the year for this year too.
But Last of Us Part 2 came out last year, and that for me is a masterpiece. Like I don't know. The Last of Us Part 2 was really good.
I have one for this year, but it's kind of cheating. It's a Mass Effect Legendary Edition.
Oh,
That's
remake.
Yeah, that's cheating.
Yeah.
Mass Effect 2 is like another top 5 game for me.
Yeah, but I mean, I played through them all, and I am not 100% on achievements yet, but I plan to go back and get them all, even though I got them all originally for the original games too.
So as we're talking in the chat, if you're watching so far, what's been your potential game of the year? So going back to Metroid, I tell you some of the things that really impressed me is the fluidity of the action. Her animation and her fighting style. Somebody said this and I couldn't get it out of my head. They said, "Do you remember when you played the original like Arkham Knights or Arkham City, the Batman game, and how
Yeah.
that combat
that combat was like you could almost feel the punches and everything, how fluid it was." That's the way I get with this in a 2D game. I just feel the combat is so fluid and you have such sweet control with her that it's just a pleasure just to run around and pull off the counter attack and pull some sweet moves and stuff like that. So it's just the animation and it's just the controls are top notch.
That's 100% on my notes.
Ooh.
Smooth and faster than expected. And faster is something that I think speed wise, it's a fast game. Like she is quick, and then and to add to that, how smooth the animations are and how good the graphics go, and then like on top of all of that, like the combat just fits really really well. Yeah, like I completely agree with you, Marty. How smooth the game is and how well it runs on the Switch. No complaints there. It's amazing.
I think that's reflected in her design too, right? Her suit's kind of slimmed down. Like in previous games, she's had like a bulkier suit, but she's in like a slimmed down one. So it feels good that she's agile, right? And also the sliding helps with that too. You're like, that's just extra mobility right off the bat.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about performance. From what people have been saying, it holds around 60 frames per second, which is really good. And
especially for a Switch game, yeah.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, if any of y'all ever played Hyrule Warriors, it does not hold anywhere close to that. In fact, I was really kind of upset when they announced the new Switch. I was thinking, oh, good, they're finally going to upgrade the hardware so I can play Hyrule Warriors and get a smooth frame rate. Nope. And I haven't finished that game because I swear when there's a lot of stuff on the screen, it just starts crunching down and you can feel it. So to have a game like this that is just silky smooth all the way throughout, even with everything going on the screen, is just amazing.
Yeah,
agree.
There are fewer enemies on screen than some previous Metroid games, but the enemies feel more impactful, right? Even the regular enemies hit kind of hard. So I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm. Is there any aside from, let's see, the counter's not really new. What else would be new in this game that you hadn't seen in Metroids before? The slides one.
Yeah, I mean we're at a point right now where I don't think there is anything yet. I mean, we're not through the game, right? And there is, I think, some stuff that pops in later in the game. And I didn't look too far ahead, but I'm pretty sure that she unlocks some things that might be new. I think at this point of the game, it's all pretty standard. I mean, I don't remember, the blaster that we got. Like, I don't remember it being a triple blaster in the other one or whatever. But I mean, there's a couple things, but that's kind of getting into a little bit of spoiler because I think half the fun of the game is exploring and unlocking the new weapons, right? Like, what is new and exciting? Like, not even. I'd rather like that's a bigger excitement point than like whatever in the story. Like, because let's be real, like the story's cool, but it's all about the gameplay in these, I think.
Yeah, somebody mentioned in the chat spider climbing.
Yeah.
Which is and that's in the trailer. That's not a spoiler. That's in the trailer. And it used to be part of the morph ball. The morph ball had the spider.
Right,
oh yeah, the morph ball could attach to the wall and like go up and around.
I'm sorry,
and
Nick,
you get spider pretty early too. No, I was gonna say conceptually, and we talked about this already though, but the enemies are kind of new, right? The unkillable enemy that's kind of like chasing you around. I actually felt like that was very Resident Evil-ish, right? Like Nemesis and Mr. X chasing you around, right? That's the feel that it gave me.
100% that feel. But what I like even more about it than that feel is that they are zones, right? It's not you are not being chased by this thing in every single part of every single map. You are going in and out of these zones, and you know exactly when you're in one of those zones. And if you really need to, you can bounce out, right?
Right.
But you have stuff to do in these zones, so it feels like a mini game, almost not like a mini game, but you know what I mean, where it's like you are now in this zone, and this is what we're doing. We're gonna like either avoid it or try to destroy it eventually. Like this is like the part we're at. So I like how they're contained to certain sections of the map.
Right. And it is kind of reminiscent of SAX from Fusion, except she was slow. SAX was just like, here she is. I got to avoid her. But enemies are fast.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when you get one that senses you and it turns red, it's like, holy cow. You're just trying to, it's like, I don't have time to pull up the map. Just run. Hopefully I get out of here.
Yeah.
That adds a little bit of stealth aspect too, right? You can see where it is on the map, and then it starts pinging you when it's close. Yeah.
Yep. And not a spoiler because it's in the trailer. You do get the Phantom Cloak where you can basically hide from it. But you know what? If it touches you, that's it. And I've been in situations where I got the cloak on and it goes ting and touches me. It's like crap.
I know. I I got to get better at that counter because you can you can counter out of Emmy attacks, and there's a very small window to be able to do it. A buddy of mine who was also playing it on the side, he's like, I just gave up. He's like, if they get me, I'm out. I'm not even trying to counter at this point. I'm just restarting. And I'm like, no, it's so cool when you do it though, because you can slide under
Right.
their legs and like
And
get out of there.
they're like stunned. Right.
Yeah, it's awesome when it happens, but yeah, I think I don't even I might have lost my train of thought there.
I was talking to my son who has this, and he's big into fighting games.
Yeah.
And so he said it reminds him of fighting games because in fighting games there are certain frames and animations that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And he says that he has gotten to where he can kind of sense when that frame is coming up and actually start mashing the button in anticipation of it. It's like, well, you suck. No.
Gotta count them frames. I'm a big
Yeah.
Street Fighter fan too, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
Street Fighter 3 especially with the perfect parry. That's all about frames.
you've seen the Daigo video, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Where he counters the Chun-Li kick. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, Marty? There's Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. There's this Daigo parry that's like the most famous.
Oh, it was.
tournament.
Yes, I've seen it. And it was like people were going insane because you shouldn't be able to block her kick. Is that what it is?
Yeah. So well, you can parry it, but the way he did it, like he was down to no health, and yeah, he parried every single Chun-Li special, and then jumped, parried, and then pulled off his ultra, and everyone went nuts. Little fun fact here: I played the guy that took that video. The guy that took that video, I played him in Marvel versus Tatsunoko. Actually, that was a weird one. They did like this for Wii. They had like one, but that guy was Seth Killian that took that. Or was it Seth Killian? I think it was. Yeah, it was Seth Killian that took the video. Seth Killian is who they named the Street Fighter boss.
Oh,
after.
Seth, the bad guy, yeah.
Yeah. He's just big in the community. Like he's been there forever. And I played him in a game. He's like a super great, cool dude. But he took that video of Daigo versus
Justin Wong.
Wong, yeah.
Justin Wong, yeah.
Yep.
Who's also a great player.
Sorry,
but I mean, it was even more impressive because in Street Fighter you just hold back and you block, right? But Daigo had no health left, so he couldn't even take a single kick.
Yeah.
Even while blocking.
I love it.
So, but you can do what's called a perfect parry, where you push forward at the exact, but it has to be that exact frame. And Tony does that rapid kick, and he did that perfectly for every single one of those kicks.
For every single one.
Yeah.
But see that back to Metroid, that's what you need to do with the Y. Y button is parry, and these enemies will come at you with like a weapon, and if you hit it just at the right time, there's a small window, you can actually block and get out of it. I love that. I think it's so cool. At least the option of an instant death, like not just being there.
It makes you feel better about when it happens. You're like, oh, I didn't do it that time, but at least I had a chance.
It's all on me.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Also, they restart you right outside. If you get killed, so you don't have to like go all the way back to your save point. Because the first time it happened, I'm like, oh no, I didn't save. Right.
Yeah,
but then I popped right outside. And I'm like, okay, never mind, that's fine.
Yeah. Speaking of which, you die in a boss fight, they put you right back outside. So I really appreciate the save points are frequent enough to where you don't feel like, oh my gosh, I gotta die and run back all over the place. I appreciate that Adam, unlike in Fusion, basically told you where to go. If y'all like exploration games, this is 100% exploration. It's wide open. There's no hand holding. You can see a map and you can kind of see, maybe it's like, oh, there's a certain door here or certain door here, but you don't know where you need to go to get anything. And that's typical Metroidvania style games.
Yep, I agree. It's not without its faults.
Okay, faults. Go ahead.
Because I don't think it's a perfect game. I'm as it is my current game of the year, I don't think it's perfect, and I think there's a really glaring issue with it.
Okay.
And that's that they don't make breakable environment easy to find. And I'm not saying I need it to be like flashing at me or whatever, but there's like no queue or anything on breakable environments. And that's not just for hidden places. It's like places you need to go.
The map flashes, but that's it.
The map flash. The map flashes let you know that it's like somewhere in there.
It says in that section there's something hidden. There's like a breakable. That's the only thing though. Like not the pieces itself don't show you, but the map will show you.
Wait a minute. Well, I know it shows you if there's something hidden to pick up. Does it show you if there's breakable stuff just to get through it?
You know what? I don't know. That's a
So
good question.
let me tell you my biggest setback was between area 2 and 3. There's a spot you got to blast, and there's no indication of it. I ran by it 50 times, and it's not a big space. There's like only a couple little map places between the two spots, and I thought I was stuck. Like I literally thought I was stuck in the game.
Was that before the first boss?
I don't remember if it's before the first boss or not. It's between the second zone and the third zone, like the train that
Oh,
would
that's
like
happening.
take you there or whatever. But I got straight up stuck, and I looked online. There's an entire article on it. But like I was not the only one, and that's when I knew it was like a serious problem. I was like, it says, and it's between Cataris and Darien, and on Game Ramp they have like this whole thing on how to get it, and they're like, yeah, it's just right here. You shoot this floor, and I'm like, you kidding me? Like, and then I've seen that pop up from time to time where it's like there's just a floor. I feel the game could have done a little better job at showing you, I don't know, just giving us a little thread to say this. You could probably shoot this with this
Like
beam or
one
whatever.
pixel that's cracked, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, I mean,
yeah,
that's in Zelda games, right? If you
Yeah.
there's stone walls, but every once in a while you'll see a stone that has like little cracks in it. But you got to look for it, but it's there.
right, exactly. And again, I don't I don't need the hand holding, but this is like this is hidden wall style stuff. But it's not hidden. It's not like a secret area. It's like to get to the next
Yeah.
zone. So at this point, I'm shooting every single wall as I go through every zone. I'm just like floor, ceiling. Like I'm just shooting
That-
everything because I have no idea where I can go and where I can't.
That was
Yeah.
the thing to do though in all those old school games though with the hidden
I get
walls.
you,
Like
yeah.
you literally were just marking, okay, I shot here, I jump up slightly, shot here, I jump up slightly, shot right, jump slightly higher, shoot there.
Yeah.
So I mean it's kind of old school, but yeah, it feels punishing in terms of a modern game.
Oh, we was talking about finding things. A person in the chat, Nio Bari, I'm sorry if I
Yeah.
say that name wrong, who's finished the game, just said,
Yeah, yeah.
well, you might learn things. I know something that's coming, a skill, because I actually read a review, and
Oh, so
it's
they
a
might become
skill. It's a
apparent.
skill that's not new. In fact, it was in Samus Returns, but I know something that is coming. It's going to make it a little bit easier to find things.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's fine. Like I get that, but if you're not gonna give me that thing earlier in the game,
Right, especially in a place where you need to progress,
and
right?
you
Yeah.
need to progress, and you're gonna just run over it nonstop, it's like, I mean, I got stuck. I got legitimately stuck where I'm like, and I don't like looking up online without, it's like last resort for me to look online to be
I'm
like,
curious what what place you're talking about. So I got to the third area today, and what's it called?
well,
Denara.
it's between there, yeah. Between Cataris and Darien. So Darien is where you just got.
Okay, so Darien's where I got, and there was a place that I got in there, and it's like, okay, I don't know how to progress from here, and you sent me here, so I must be able to do something. And I had to go look, and I hated it. And it's like, oh, by the way, there's 2 blocks here on the floor. You shoot to drop down to a.
I think
That's what I'm talking. That's exactly
the one
the
that I'm
spot.
talking about, yeah.
That's the
exactly the spot.
one. Okay,
That's what I'm talking about. They wrote a whole article on that spot. And that's
Wow.
where I have to ding it just a little tiny bit where I'm saying, I just don't think that's good game design. I think that they could have done a little bit better job to lead us through the path because that's not like a puzzle. That's just me shooting every single piece of environment.
Right.
It's funny hearing somebody's played it in the chat go, bad news. The's more moments like that.
Well, no, I'm shooting every single piece of wall up, no wall gets unshot now at this point. So
it is cool though in Metroidvania style games where you find an area and you go, dang it. I know the morph ball will get me in there. I just got to remember that I need to come back here later on when I got the morph ball.
Yeah,
so I
there's
can
so
get in
many
there.
places early on where like a morph ball would get you like an item or an energy tank or a missile tank or something.
Yep. Yeah. So any other negative things between you or Nick that you want to bring up?
Yeah.
Oh, more.
For
Keep
me,
going.
okay, I'll let you go. I
Not
have
too
my
much.
one. I have one that big.
Nick, what's yours?
Mine is the narrative, and I talked about this already, where they had to come up with some other like BS excuse to depower Samus at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, how many times have we seen that? Literally every Metroid other than the first one.
I mean,
right?
how else are we gonna play? What are we gonna do?
Right. How else are you gonna be a challenge? I would have liked to see something else, right?
No, I get you. My next, I'll one super quick. And this is hardware issue. I think the loading between travel is too long.
It's long.
It's really long. It's like set my Switch down and go do something else for like a little bit because and I mean I get that there's like you're doing an entire zone, but I don't know, man. It seems weird that the loading is that long between
Yeah.
zones. It's just
Save and load does that too. Like when you're firing it up for the first time, the load seems a little bit long.
yeah. So it's got a little long load times. That's a small nick. My other one is a little on the controls, and that's aiming down and then crouching down. I
Oh
mean,
yes,
Yep, you're right.
that got me. It takes like an extra half second too long to crouch.
totally. Because you're aimed down first, or and it's like it's really weird. And I'm still a couple hours in having trouble controlling her because sometimes whether I need to crouch or aim up or like it just there's some aiming things that aren't perfect, right? Like, and it's mainly with the crouching and the aiming down both being the same thing.
You can do the standing targeted aim though, right?
Yeah.
We hit
And
like the targeted left trigger and
yeah, you hold like R1 or you hold L1 and she can like
that one, yeah.
yeah. And then if you want to do missiles, you're like holding both of them and like aiming the missiles.
Right,
But
that can be awkward, yeah.
it gets a little cumbersome when you're like doing all that. But yeah, I know that Marty pointed at me as soon as I said it, so I know that he's had that issue too.
Yep.
The aiming and crouching.
Yeah.
Crouching, I definitely felt the crouching one for sure.
The I think the one nick for me is actually the soundtrack is very forgettable. Metroid Prime has amazing background music for each of the zones. I don't even notice the music in this game. That's sad to me because games like Castlevania and Metroid, when I'm walking around and stuff, give me something that is like nostalgic. It's like, oh, that's right, that's the music for this zone, or that's the music for this zone. So I wish the soundtrack was a little bit better.
Yeah, Castlevania though is like a hard stick to measure against though. Castlevania's games usually have like the best soundtracks.
Oh, good.
They do.
So I kicked up Aria Sorrow and I just felt like I like like put my cover. It was like cozy music. Like I just hear it. I mean, all of Castlevania music. I have soundtracks of that, like literally that I can just listen to, because they all slap. If that's what you're saying now.
We've got Mondo puts out LPs of Castlevania music, and we have all of them.
So good. Like all of them are so good.
Symphony of the Night's amazing.
Well, because also Marty, this is like there's not a lot of music in it, right? Like it's pretty quiet, right? Like there's not like that jam that goes through every level like in Castlevania that just gets stuck in your head.
Yeah,
this is more of like you're in space, so
Yeah.
it's quiet. And I think it serves that well. But yeah, there's nothing really memorable on the soundtrack so far other than the familiar tunes when you hear them, like when you find an upgrade or whatever.
Yeah, but I'm thinking like in Metroid Prime, the I can't remember the name of the area, but basically the lava area.
Yeah.
There is a I can even hum it right now, and I won't because it won't make any sense. But that is just will always be lodged in my head.
Right.
That's
Super
really,
Metroid had really good music, but yeah, I think that might be the only one that I love the soundtrack for.
and honestly, I think that's all I really had for Super Negatives. I did have a thought that I wanted to ask you guys because this has been a point of contention for most people playing this game. And that is this game too hard? Like,
No.
Well, no, I get it. Like, and I think I'm with you, but I also understand people thinking that it might be. But yeah, is this game too hard? Tell me your thoughts on that.
Go ahead, Nick.
I think it's okay. It's a Metroid game. This is exactly what I expected out of a Metroid game.
Yeah.
It's just the right level of difficulty, and they did make some concessions to modern game design, right? I mentioned when the first time I died, I got caught by an enemy. I'm like, oh no, I have to go all the way back to my save point, and then I popped out right there. I'm like, okay, never mind, great. Like there's internal checkpoints, right, beyond the actual save points.
Yeah. So for me, like I said, I'm not the best gamer in the world, and I get frustrated with the bosses and everything like that. But man, it is so satisfying when you finally take it down. It feels so good.
Yeah.
And to me, and my kids will say this too. My kids who are like in their late teens, early 20s, they love playing. My oldest son, Castlevania is his all-time favorite series, and he loves playing the old stuff because he says, I'm sick of playing the newer games, which gives you an easy mode and all this. And he says, if I want to play a game, make it challenging. And he said, those old school games you grew up with, Dad, those are some tough, good games. My middle son loves the Souls type games.
Yeah, Dark Souls is
which considers some of the hardest. So I'm not of that mindset where a lot of the gaming journalists are like, I need an easy mode so I can get through this. It's like, then find something else to write about, okay? But that's just me.
You know, for me, like, I don't care what mode you play the game on. That's totally whatever. You know, if you want to get through a gaming experience that on easy, whatever. But this game doesn't have that option, right? Like Metroid is just you can unlock a harder difficulty. And also this is coming from someone who is a big Dark Souls fan myself. I mean, I've beaten Dark Souls, I've beaten Bloodborne. I got to the very end of Sekiro, if that matters at all. Sekiro was very difficult. That I didn't finish
Yeah,
it.
my shadow died more than twice in Sekiro.
What's that?
I said my shadow died more than twice in Sekiro.
Oh man, like I love that game still though. But yeah, like, and I cannot wait for Elder Sign. Like I will play through Elder Sign. So difficult games for me are fine. Like I can deal with it. I can die 100 times and not like break my controller in half. I mean, I can be mad, but I'm not gonna like, you know, I know that while hard, these games are not impossible. Like you can get through them. I have just heard online and I've heard in other conversations that, you know, the difficulty of this game is a little back and forth just because of how many times people do die. The enemies are instant killing you, you know. You might get stuck. You might not be able to find out where you're going. And yeah, I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it. I mean, I agree with you both. I don't think it's too difficult. I think the difficulty is right after I just beat the second boss. I did die like 10 times on the second boss, but I finally got by him. I mean, you learn the patterns and then you just go beat him. Like that's what you do with bosses. But I could see it maybe beating somebody down and then maybe discouraging them not to move forward. So, you know,
So
just wanted to bring it up.
How do you feel about Dark Souls though, where you lose all your souls that you accumulated too before the boss, right? At least this one you start right outside, right? Like, you just retry.
This is true.
So the chat asked, have there been any mechanics where you thought, wow, that is neat?
I mean, the counter mechanic has me smitten. But you know, and it's new to me. Just I didn't play the last one that introduced it. But like, you got to understand how they do this is like an enemy will come flying in at you. You will counter it, and she goes into some really cool animation. And all you got to do is shoot. You don't even got to aim. And it's like a one-shot kill, and it feels good every time. It has never not felt awesome. A similar feeling is in the newest God of War, throwing the axe and then like recalling it, just like when it hits your hand and it comes back. There's some things in games that just give you like a really cool feeling that you want to like do over and over again, and this is one of them. So the counter mechanic for me is like, I love it.
Anything for you, Nick, that stuck out?
I like the sections when you're finally able to, I guess, maybe not a spoiler, but destroy the enemies. That feels really satisfying. I'm like, this guy's been chasing me around for the last 30 minutes, and now I can finally take him out.
Yeah, I feel good too there. I'm not sure if we should dive in too much to it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have some thoughts on that, but yeah, that's definitely those are cool moments for sure.
Yep. So another question is what do people consider the best experience for Dread to be? TV or handheld, and a TV, Pro Controller, or Joy-Con? So I think that's a good segue because we're going to wrap up with both Matt and I bought the Switch OLED.
We did.
Nick, did you get one by chance?
No, I was too late.
Oh, okay. So what we want to do is just kind of give our impressions of the OLED. And Matt, I'll let you go first on your thoughts on the device as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, this is amazing. You know, I think that the screen is super sharp, very clear, and I prefer to play Metroid Dread on this versus my 65-inch 4K TV downstairs. Like, I mainly because the big difference is like playing PC games versus video games, where we are like right on top of our screens, right? Like, and when you're playing the Switch handheld, I mean, usually it's like this far from my face, right? Like it's like super close. So I'm as close as I can be to this thing. But regardless, the colors, I think the OLED screen makes a really big difference, and you can see it if you have them next to each other. You can really see the difference. I think some people have complained that it's not that much different going from one to another, but I don't think those people like really saw them next to each other, because I did when I traded in my old Switch. I got the new one, and I was like kind of looking at them back and forth, and I'm like, the colors pop off. And Marty mentioned at one point the blacks are like super dark. I mean, they are like blacked out. So it's really good. I'll tell you, outside of the screen though, It's the same Switch. It's got a nice new the back is nicer, like the kickstand.
Kickstand. Hmm.
I haven't used it yet, but the whole thing comes back now like this.
Oh, that's a lot nicer than just a little like tiny
Oh
leg
yeah,
that comes out the original. Yeah.
yeah. So this will be good in planes when we start traveling again, and yeah, and that's another reason. Like I travel a lot, not now due to pandemic times, but yeah, this is just like you're not gonna be able to see on this. Uh, see how good the screen looks? Yeah, I think it's great. When we travel on planes and stuff, I want the best looking thing. I'll sync up my Bluetooth headphones to it now that they added the
Hmm.
Bluetooth. But yeah, how about you, Marty? What do you think of it?
So I was surprised, one, that going from 6.2 inches to 7 inches would feel that different. It feels bigger, or it looks
Yes.
bigger. I'm just surprised how much of a difference that makes. And for those who are watching who may not know, what's the difference between LED and OLED technology? So typical LED screens have a backlight in the back that's on for the entire screen, so it helps illuminate the screen. OLEDs, actually each individual pixel is backlit or can be lit. So what that means is, in a regular LED screen, if the screen is black, it's kind of grayish because there's still a backlight that's behind it.
Mhm.
With OLED screens, it's basically off, so it's pitch black. And what that does is create really extremely good contrast between light and dark. And I think it's really interesting that they released Dread and the OLED on the same day, because Dread really takes advantage of that contrast of dark and light, and things just pop. And so, to answer the question, going all the way back, I used to like to play on the TV and not handheld because of clarity on the TV. But I'm like you, man. I've got a 65-inch 4K 120 hertz TV I just got last year. I'd rather play on this handheld now because I can see things better and everything just pops more on that screen than it does on my TV.
Absolutely. And it's also a thing with the Switch games anyway, right? Like you're putting in the dock, they're moving it over to the TV. I just think that the Switch handheld mode and Metroid Dread was built for this screen. You're absolutely right. They launched this game with this system for a reason, not just because they timed it at the right time. Because I've tried some other games, and while they look good, they do not look as good as Dread. Dread pops even more than others. So I know going forward, all newer games and stuff, I think are really going to take advantage of the screen. I really like it. I think it's a good upgrade, and yeah, worth. I traded in my old one and got this one. The only the biggest downfall is that Nintendo and their transfer offerings is not good. That's all there is to it. They did
Especially of
not.
Animal Crossing, right?
Yeah, that's bad. That's real bad. A very long story short, I lost my wife's house in Animal Crossing. I brought mine over. The good news, I brought some of my money made it over. And the thing that is so weird about it is if you've all played Animal Crossing, if anyone knows how you send a house over and then you start the game from the beginning of the game. Like you lose your island anyway. You don't get to keep your island. You lose your island. You move to a new island. You get to keep your stuff, but they don't even give you your stuff when you log in. You have to go a full game day, sleep in your sleeping bag, wake up, and then Tom Nook's like, "Oh yeah, here's your stuff. It showed up today." Like what? I was in a GameStop trying to do this. I'm like, I don't have time for this. I guess I just lost everyone's stuff. And then I got home, and then Tom Nook's like, "Oh, here's your stuff," and I'm like calling GameStop, like, "Hey, did you guys delete my?" And they're like, "Yeah, we formatted it." I was like, "No."
Oh, geez.
But I had a long talk with the wife. I explained everything to her, and she was complaining about not having anything to do anyway. So maybe start.
There you go.
Giving it
There you
to
go.
start over,
We're
right?
going again.
So here's the thing. I was going from the OG Switch, so the first. So the battery life, I can already tell, is better in this than the other one.
Yeah,
If you have what's called the red box Switch, which is the newer version, battery life is going to be totally the same between the two. You do get 64 gig of internal memory now as opposed to 32. Most people
yep,
put in a card anyway, so it really doesn't matter. So if you got the red box Switch, I don't know that it's worth the upgrade. If you got the original like I did, it might be
I
worth
did.
it because you do get better battery life also.
Yeah. So Nick, what are you preferring though? Are you playing it handheld or are you playing
I,
it on your
I've
TV?
been playing mostly on screen because I just prefer playing on the screen.
Yeah,
But there are times where I played handheld too because the Switch is the console I have to fight the kids for, and also the TV, the living room TV.
yeah.
So I've been doing my fair share of handheld, and I haven't had any issues. And I have the red box one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
mine was a launch Switch, so it was time to upgrade.
Yep. Yep. And I think, well, how much did you get credit at GameStop?
$260.
So you only paid $90 basically
Yeah.
to upgrade. So
That's what I said. Yeah,
that's worth it.
it was.
By the time I decided I was interested, they were all sold out, and I'm like, "Ugh, I should have
Yeah, I went
hesitated."
early. I went to one GameStop. So the GameStop closest to me said they had one extra. And check this out, they had one extra. So I showed up at the day. I pulled into the driveway or the parking lot, and there was one person standing out front. I parked and I walked up, and there was two people standing there. And so I was number 3, and the first guy in line was just getting Dread. The second guy was like, "Oh, I'm hoping to get a Switch," and I was like 2 minutes too late. But then I cut my GameStop 15 minutes down the road, which was a little bit further, down for me. They had like 9 extras,
wow.
so they were
Wow.
like, "Yeah, just come down." Like they're like, "We're fine. We don't even have a line." And I was like, "All right." But then I was there for 2 hours trying to transfer everything. But the deal was good. I mean, I got enough, and they said they need systems. They're out of systems like altogether, so they need anything, and that's why they're giving such a good bump up on it. And it still might be going on, but if OLEDs are sold out, I don't know when you'll see a replenishment on them.
Somebody in the chat said, didn't they allow for Bluetooth headphones? Finally, yes, and it is really nice to sit there not tethered to your Switch.
Yeah, I'll take advantage of that soon.
Yep.
Once I play
Especially
it.
for traveling, right? As many
Speakers on the OLED one are good though. I mean, it sounds good. It's on
Yep.
its own.
And I am waiting for the Satisfy grip upgrade. I don't know if have y'all ever seen the Satisfy grip?
Mm-mm.
Okay, wow. So go to Satisfy, SATISFYE. It is basically a grip that you slide your Switch into that basically feels like the most natural thing I've ever played. I can't stand playing without it now because my hands get cramped.
Okay.
And the OLED screen is about 1 to 2 millimeters wider. So
Yeah.
the current one that I have is too narrow. So they're coming out with a Gen 3, and I will be buying that. That grip is worth, I think it's just $30 for a grip. I highly recommend it if you play a lot of handheld.
Yeah, I've been using Pro Controller because I think that got asked in the chat too. I don't know. I just prefer the feel of the Pro Controller anyway.
Oh, I use the Pro Controller. If I'm Breath of the Wild, I played all with the Pro Controller. But for the most part, my Switch just generally travels with me, so it's like I end up doing handheld mode more. I never had any desire to get a light, but so I did skip the light, the Switch Lite, but this is great. I'm glad I upgraded. And then the first thing Marty kicked it off with was the screen being bigger. And if you can, you might be able to see this here around there's not as much like from here
bezel
into where the screen is. Just the screen area is much bigger, and you can tell a difference once you start playing it.
Yeah. Well, we want to try to keep this around an hour. Matt, Nick, let me ask you something. Once we finish the game, would you guys be interested in coming back and doing a full spoiler-filled review?
Yeah, you're gonna put pressure on me to try to finish.
Yeah.
Oh no pressure. It could be November, it could be December. Just at some point in time, we all three finished it. Maybe come back and get together again, and we can just talk about the story, everything, in a full. And that'll give a lot of other people who haven't finished it if they want to jump in with us and just hang out. And if you're watching right now and you haven't subscribed, please do so, because I finally found somebody to talk some geeky stuff with about video games, because my co-host Tony has no interest in Metroid. So it's not anything that he's going to play or I get to talk about a lot with. So it was so exciting. I reached out to Matt and I said, Matt, you seem to be wanting to get into this. You want to get together and do a chat? Yeah. I said, who else can we get? Matt said, I know Nick would be good. So it was just awesome just sitting here talking for an hour about this game.
Matt's a bad influence. He just sends me links to a bunch of video games.
Yeah. I'm a retail sales manager for a reason. Like,
right.
The overall thing is though, like, your enthusiasm for something just sells stuff. Like, I'm just I get excited about things, and I get very, just excited to tell people how good something is. No BS, no anything. Just like, hey, and that in itself, I worked at GameStop for a long time. I managed a GameStop for 15 years prior to working for Skybound. And I had people come in and see me all the time because they just wanted to know what I thought of a game. Like
Mhm.
they would come to see Matt. Like, hey, what have you been playing? And I would tell them. They'd leave with 5 new games, and it's like, I know you're gonna like all those, because I could just pick that out. And that's why they brought me onto this team, like to do the same thing with tabletop and board games. But now that our world, and Marty, this is our world is board games. We talk about board games all the time, all day, every day, but we still have passions for video games, and that outlet's not there. So to be able to sit around and chat about a video game, especially a new title like this, like I'd be up for doing this any night of the week on any game. Like being able to sit here and talk about games, I love it. And people in the chat asking questions and stuff. I think it's great. Thanks for
Yeah,
inviting me, Marty. It's been fun.
those worlds aren't that far apart either, because video game design inspires board game design and vice versa, right?
Totally.
And in fact, if you know any game developers, one of the big things they do is they call paper prototyping. Like when they're trying to execute new ideas to see if it works, they will make like a little miniature board game to prototype out their video game idea.
Mm-hmm.
So just before we go, I'm going to put you guys on the spot. We got the holiday season coming up. There's a few new games coming out. What's one or two of your most anticipated titles is coming out before Christmas?
Ooh, before Christmas.
Yeah. So now I'll give you a chance to think about it. Here. I'll just go ahead and name.
What's yours?
One of mine is for how long? Almost 2 decades, maybe. I've been waiting to play Advance Wars again. So when they announced the remake of Advance Wars 1 and 2, I was all over it, and I will be getting that day one. I just love turn-based strategy games like that, Final Fantasy Tactics, etc. So I am super excited for the nostalgia that's going to come when I play Advance Wars.
I'm with you there. Advance Wars is absolutely incredible, and that was probably my favorite announcement of that Nintendo Direct. Also, I do think, Marty, we should absolutely do live Direct and live like state of play,
live reaction.
I love watching these with people. Like it's one thing to watch these like by yourself and whatnot, but growing up, throughout working at GameStop, E3 used to be like an event for me. Like I'd have people over to the house. Like we would watch the press conferences. I would take off from work in the music store or whatever. Like we would just be like watching E3 press conferences. I could tell you every single press conference. So the directs are like another just version of that, just announcements and getting excited about what that is. So if anyone's interested in like doing like a live react, like love doing that.
Yeah. And in fact, during E3, all 3 of my kids are out of the house now, but it was a big weekend event. And we basically set aside the entire weekend just to watch streams and stuff. And even now, when a direct's going on, we'll be texting each other as, oh my gosh, did you see that sort of deal? So
I've set up Discord channels just for it, just to be like, let's just chat and we'll watch it together. We'll stream it and, just kind of react to all the announcements together. But yes, Marty, Advance Wars was... I'm very excited about Advance Wars. I'll get that and play through those again. I think the new art style looks pretty cool. And, just to have those. Did you happen to play that other game that was like Advance Wars that just recently came out?
There was one on the Switch, right? The fantasy one with the dog.
Groove something?
Wargroove.
Groovehound.
Wargroove, right?
Wargroove. Yeah, Wargroove. And Wargroove came out with a version called Double Trouble, which was 2-player co-op, and it was really good. It kind of felt like a tabletop, you taking turns going back and forth and working your way through levels. So that was good. Most anticipated for me for this year, man, what else is coming out? Because outside of Metroid Dread, I'm trying to think on like what even is coming out. That
Guardians of the Galaxy's later this month, I know.
Yeah, I mean, I'll play that, but that's not like firing me up.
Well, Avengers, I think, killed a lot of people's enthusiasm for
Diamond Pearl remake. Any interest in that?
My kids, I'll get it for my kids.
Yeah.
But the one that I'm probably most excited about is Endwalker, the Final Fantasy 14 expansion. I don't have an active sub right now, but I'll dip my toes back in just to go through the story, because for me, Shadowbringers was like the best standalone Final Fantasy game that's come out in like probably a decade. If you took that as just like a single player game.
And for those in the chat, before we jump out, if throw up, what are you excited about? What are we forgetting? There's probably games that we're just totally forgetting. So if
I'm trying to look up a list, Marty. I absolutely am forgetting. Nick, real quick, I've played a lot of Final Fantasy 14. Even more so during the pandemic when I did not have a job and I was just like looking for stuff to do. And I finally finished Core, like just vanilla. There was like 800 million side quests.
Oh yeah, Roman Born. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I got into Heaven's Ward and played a bunch of that. But I've heard that the new stuff, the story is like so good. I'm jealous. I'd love to be able to get up to that point.
Shadowbringers is amazing.
I've heard that. I've heard it has some of the best story of any Final Fantasy.
Yep.
And if there was a Final Fantasy game coming out, that would be
when is the next one coming? When is Final Fantasy Zero coming out?
I don't know. Still looking at upcoming. Why is there not just like a list?
There's Games Radar has released.
Oh, you know what I'm most looking forward to be honest with you, I think?
What's that?
I'm looking forward to the new Halo.
Okay. Halo Infinite. Yeah, very nice.
I have a Series X. It's on Game Pass. It's gonna just be loaded onto my system.
Yep.
I can't wait. I love Halo. I've played Halo since the beginning. LAN parties with buddies, taking TVs, putting them back to back, going for split screen, like huddling up over your systems. And ever since then, I've played Halo every single one, and all the stories. Like I've beaten every single Halo. So I think Halo Infinite is probably my most anticipated coming up.
I don't know. I played Halo religiously up and through and including Reach, but I don't feel it's been the same since it left Bungie.
No, and I agree. And Destiny is like really good, right? Like as far as gameplay wise, but I'm always interested to see what they do. So, what about you, Nick? What else are you looking forward to?
I think the ones we mentioned, but Endwalker is probably the one for me. Oh,
Yeah.
you know what? Darkest Dungeon 2, if that comes out this year too. Darkest Dungeon 2 will be on my list if that comes out this year.
Yeah, I think everything has like kind of come. Like I'm looking because I'm not like a big Call of Duty person.
The new Battlefield game.
Battlefield looks cool. I did try that beta. That looked all right.
That beta got the mess beat out of it, though. People sure didn't like it.
Did they bat it down?
Oh, big time. Yep.
I didn't know that.
Somebody asked, "Is Sora and Smash Brothers out yet?" I don't think.
I'm excited for that.
I don't think that's out yet, though.
I'm a big Kingdom Hearts fan. I finished all of those games, and just being a Final Fantasy fan, you kind of adjacently are going to be a Kingdom Hearts fan. And I of course have Smash Brothers, and Smash Brothers is super fun. Which I'm behind a pass. I don't think I've gotten the last pass or whatever, but I would totally play Smash or Sora and Smash. I think that's a great addition. And that trailer, by the way, is incredible. Like their last reveal trailer of Sora was so good. And if you haven't went on YouTube and watched reaction of people like watching that trailer, like it literally brings like it makes me so happy that people get so happy.
I thought it might be Dark Souls for a second though because of the bonfire.
Yeah, Elden Ring's not this year, is it? Elden Ring's not coming out this year because that would be my most anticipated. Is anyone gonna play Far Cry 6? I have like no desire to play Far Cry.
Nope.
I don't know. They named the main character the same as the character in Ted Lasso, like Danny Rojas.
Did they? I want to play Tales of Arise real bad, but that's.
I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Yeah, there's not a lot out, guys. Death Stranding director's cut, like that's like the big PS5 release.
I loved Death Stranding though, but I know I'm in the minority, so I don't recommend the game to anybody. But I
loved it. Oh, my son loved it.
I'm a huge Hideo Kojima fan, and I'm a huge Metal Gear fan, and I'm all up for his craziness. And I did play that for a little while, but that did get on me a little bit. I was kind of I was right before, like I don't know. There's a part where you're right next to your bike and you got to go walk somewhere for 50 million years, and I never got by that part. So I would be interested to maybe play the director's cut. Just being a big fan of Hideo Kojima there, but I couldn't like finish it.
There's there's rumors of them remaking Metal Gear Solid 3.
I hope so because to be honest with you, Snake Eater is my favorite Metal Gear.
That might be the best one, yeah.
Snake Eater and I'm gonna okay, so Snake Eater has the best last hour of any game next to Mass Effect 2, which has the best last mission of any game. Like I think the Mass Effect 2 ending, the final mission there,
right, you go out with, mission.
Yeah. And the end, that last hour, the airport scene and the fight with like, oh my god, like the end of Snake Eater, I finished. I'm like, that's why I play video games. That is that cinematic moment is so good and still so good. I don't know if the game holds up. I haven't played Snake Eater in a long time. I would play a remake though, like if they updated it a little bit, made it look a little fancier.
Kojima ended up being kind of a prophet too, right? Like Death Stranding came out before coronavirus, and Metal Gear Solid 4 predicted like private military companies and social media, like impact on social media.
Yeah, totally.
Yep. All right, gentlemen. Thanks for everybody for who tuned in and watched. That this was a lot of fun. Like it's one of those things I don't get to do a lot. Like you said, I sit there and talk about board games and stuff all the time. Nothing wrong with that. Still love board games, but there's this other passion that I have that I really just get to sit around and talk about. So, Matt, Nick, thank you so much for coming and hanging out. And again, thanks for everybody for hanging in there with us and listening and subscribe, because it sounds like, hey, maybe we'll have you guys back on sometime to either talk about this or, hey, now that I know that you're a big Advance Wars fan, Matt, well,
We're doing this for Advance Wars because we can do this for Advance Wars.
Oh, that's cool. Again, thanks everybody. And if people want to go follow these gentlemen on Twitter or wherever, Matt, where can they find you?
Yeah, my Twitter is I'll type it in chat. But it's at Matt Faulisi. Faulisi is my last name. Yeah, I'll type it in chat if anyone wants to jump over and send me a message via Twitter. But it's FAULISI at Matt Faulisi is my Twitter.
Yep. And Nick?
Mine is my username, YUTINGXIANG.
Yep. So if you look in the chat right now, you can actually see it.
I always tell people to reach Dan through Letterman Games if they need me for anything, because he's much better at getting back to people than I am.
Oh, again, guys, thank you so much. And so it looks like we need to finish up Dread here so we can get back on and talk about it again.
Well, yeah, thanks for people coming on chat. And Marty, thank you for having me and Nick. This was awesome. I would do this.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so
All right.
much.
Good night, everybody.